What kind of an attorney would publicly criticize a federal court judge and lead a crusade against corruption in the system? Stay tuned. We'll talk with civil rights attorney Stephen Yagman next on Full Disclosure. Corruption in the court system?
I think there's intellectual corruption. I don't think there's corruption in the sense of judges taking bribes, at least in the federal court system. I think there are people there who are intellectually corrupt or who are not intelligent enough to realize and interpret the law correctly. Well, the California Supreme Court, as far as I can tell, and I don't practice before it, is basically a cesspool. And what we're going to have now is one wonderful justice and 6 hacks. So I don't know how that's going to play out. It's basically got to do only with the selection process, because federal judges are appointed for life, and the selection process needs to be depoliticized, which is something that never is going to happen, and people need to be chosen based on the following factors in the following order. 1, a person has to have a good heart, has to be kind, compassionate, empathetic, and sensitive. 2nd, the person has to have at least average intelligence. And 3rd, the person has to be diligent and conscientious. If every judge who were chosen had those qualities, the bench would be perfect.
What about electing judges rather than appointments?
Electing judges is a terrible idea, because elections essentially at bottom are a popularity contest, and people who are popular shouldn't have that qualify them to be judges.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want popular judges. We want judges with good judgment.
What is the motivation behind you to be so aggressive and so outspoken and so willing to speak so freely when many, if not most, attorneys are extremely cautious in their behavior with the court and their public comments of the court?
Well, I live in a free society. I'm very thankful for that. I read the First Amendment when I was in grammar school. It said there was freedom of speech. I believed that. And when I got older, I learned that other people didn't think that there was freedom of speech, and I simply ignored that. Attorneys mostly are wimp asses who are in business to make money, and that's okay, but I'm not one of those folks.
What are you in business for?
To enforce the Constitution, to protect people against the government, and to make sure that people who believe their rights have been violated get their day in court and get their rights vindicated if that's the proper thing to happen.
Would you ever compare yourself with somebody, let's say, like a Johnny Cochran or a William Kunstler?
I despise that motherfucker Cochran. I think he's dishonest intellectually and in every other way. And I'm sorry I even spoke his name. Bill Kunstler, I couldn't measure up to his knee.
And Johnny Cochran, what seems to be his shortcomings?
I'm not going to comment on him anymore. I shouldn't have even said his name. I just don't like the man.
Okay.
I think he's full of shit.
Well, I guess you must have been censured by the judge or whatever they do in the courtroom for speaking foully in the presence of the court. Was that an erroneous report, or is there some substance to it?
I have never spoken in a courtroom in a different tone of voice than the one I'm speaking in now, and I have never, ever uttered a foul word in the courtroom, although privately I have a filthy mouth.
How is it that you are described as a civil rights attorney when your primary overwhelming focus is on police misconduct?
Well, police misconduct is a name that people sometimes, as you're doing, give to civil rights law. Civil rights law has a number of branches: constitutional law, police abuse, employment discrimination, age discrimination, gender discrimination. Police misconduct is just one of the branches of civil rights law, and that's what we happen to do.
You believe that it's possible to have an honest and ethical police department?
Of course it is. Unfortunately, the LAPD isn't one of them. But the worst thing about the LAPD is not that it's corrupt and not that it's brutal. The worst thing about it is that it's incompetent.
How many lawsuits would you say you filed against the Los Angeles Police Department?
Oh, perhaps 15 or 1,600.
Wow. And do they all go to trial?
No. Perhaps 25% of them get thrown out before trial, another 10 or 15% of them settle, and perhaps 65% of them go to trial. Los Angeles is the only large city in the United States who has a police department who is unto itself and who is not subject to any outside control at all. The police chief is in charge of the department. The police chief cannot be fired. And nominally, there is a board of directors of the LAPD called the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners who meet for 2 hours a week, and all of whom have always had day jobs. That's what the problem is. There is no civilian control at all of the LAPD, nor has there ever been.
So is it possible then the problems with LAPD over the years, going way back to 51, might be the fact that the city is too big?
No, not at all. Not at all. New York City is much, much larger than Los Angeles. New York City has about 40,000 officers. Los Angeles has about 8,000. And there has never been the level of brutality and incompetence in New York City that there has been here. There has been significant repeated corruption of the bribe-taking kind in New York City. But you have that here also, as we've now found out. We've had our own French connection here. The police department is just rotten to the core. There's no adult in charge outside the police department. And the succession of chiefs of police we've had going back to Ed Davis, then to Darrell Gates, and now to Bernard Parks has just been awful. There was one outsider, Willie Williams, and they found someone from Philadelphia who was basically incompetent, gave him a hard time for 5 years, and then dumped him.
What do you think could be done?
You basically need a new police department. You need to try to pension out or retire as many officers as are there, put in place a new training program, and try to hire new officers who are a little bit older than 21, perhaps 25 or 26, who have first been socialized outside the police department so that they actually have some values other than police department values. Hire people, as in New York City, only who have college educations. And then train them to be user-friendly, and then get a new police chief who will back that up. Barring that, the LAPD can hold its breath longer than anybody who is trying to change it.
What are the people to do if they want a responsible government, if they want a police department that is honest and not corrupt? What are the people to do in this democracy?
I don't have the slightest idea. My purpose is to uphold the Constitution and to try to make sure that the police follow the law, and that if they don't follow the law, they have to pay for it.
Controversial, informative, entertaining, FullDisclosure.net, the news behind the news.